Good evening, Zwift Riders Scotland, and welcome to this, our inaugural Ask the Coach session. My name's Synth. Hello all. I'm going to be one of your co-hosts tonight alongside Coach Scott, who we'll introduce shortly. Plus, we've got Mr. Ian Gray in the line. Ian, a big hello.
Hello, how are we doing?
There he is, the beautiful man. He's keeping his powder dry because he's got an important role tonight. He's going to be running and hosting our Q&A session, where he's going to be putting your questions live and direct to Coach Scott. Two easy ways to get involved in that tonight. If you click on your screen, you can pop into the Q&A box. You can type your question in there, and Ian will ask that on your behalf. Or alternatively, you can do the good old-fashioned way. You can raise your hand, and we'll bring you in live, and you can ask your question direct. Either way, there's no such thing as a daft question, so please do take the opportunity to get involved. Right, boring bits out the way. Delighted to welcome our special guest tonight, Coach Scott. Coach, thank you so much for coming along. I'll hand over to yourself to do just a quick intro, and then we'll get stuck into post-ride nutrition. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Hey, folk. Hey, thanks for that introduction. Yes, people call me Coach. My friends call me Scott, and my family call me something else. Ian's got a hard job on because he's got to bleep me if I start to get a little bit of west of Scotland. But yeah, what I want to do in this first session, hopefully we tick a few boxes. I'm going to go over and talk about post-recovery from an indoor ride. I want to give it as a headline summary basis, run through about 5 points, and hopefully that gives you a sense of what could be improved in your own recovery, but give you maybe some questions that will come out. What you've got to understand is when we go on to the topics, there are parameters. There are parameters in everything. And what we're trying to do is to hit the middle point, and then some will be more appropriate for you, and some may be less. Some you may be doing, some you may be not thought of. So if you want me to dive in, I'll get things kicked off and we'll start looking at it, if that's okay, yeah?
Sounds good.
Sounds good, okay, it's all mine. Sorry, we're new to this sort of thing, having a host. Normally when I'm on live, I'm all myself, so I can do what I want, but I've got to behave myself. So the first thing I want you thinking about is, okay, you've arrived at your workout. And a couple of things are going through your head. One, what is the workout you're going to do? Obviously, you know beforehand it may be a race, so you've got a warm-up period. But do you think about the recovery? Where does the recovery point start? Well, your whole day is part of that recovery. So there is a form of what we call the natural recovery that the body will go through, which is all workouts cause stress on the body, inflammation, will suppress the immune system. So your beautiful immune system is working 24/7 and absorbing that stress. Okay, so I want you thinking about that all the time. But what we do with indoor workouts, so if we're working with an elite athlete, for example, we call it the way in, way out. What we've got to do is we've got to monitor sweat loss, because when you're working indoors, you know you sweat. Some of you sweat a lot. Some of you don't maybe sweat as much. The temperature of your environment may be warm. You may be out in the garden shed. Maybe you're like me and your wife doesn't want you in the house, and you think you're so clever. You've run an internet cable all the way out to the shed and off you go, but you're still going to sweat. Okay, so that way in, way out is super important. Now, without going into this too much detail, what we need to do is have a training program that identifies a fitness aspect. I hear lots of people use Zwift. Hey, I just exercise to lose weight. Maybe in a later chat, we'll look at that and how that's not a key way to look at a workout. So what we've got to do is look at sweat loss. We've got to look and monitor that sweat loss. So we weigh in. Normally, I would have somebody weigh in their birthday suit. Hey, you're on your own. You're not live on YouTube or in some small piece of clothing that's not going to gather a lot of sweat. And you're going to do that afterwards. And we're going to monitor that weight loss as fluid loss. And that fluid loss has roughly got about 4 hours to be replaced in your system gradually. Now, normally with about 500 milliliters, believe it or not, for passive sweat. But this all depends on the workout length. So that's that parameters. The next thing I like to talk about is the glycogen clock. You are fueling your exercise on Zwift, normally a medium to high intensity. Yeah, there'll be low intensity rides, etc. But the glycogen clock is based on the duration of your workout. So if you are 60, 90 minutes, your duration is going to be satisfied with glycogen supplies that exist right now in your blood, your muscles, a little bit of backup in your liver. Then again, there are parameters to that, how well you've fueled during that day and the previous day. So how you're going into it with, let's say, your suitcases, your muscles packed with ready available glycogen. Now, 100 riders will have access to the same glycogen, but at different levels. You'll have different size of muscles, different levels of activation hormones, just depending on your day, and I'm afraid your age, and sometimes your gender. But again, have an idea of that glycogen clock. If you are going into a longer ride where you're going to be going over 90 minutes, you're already starting to fuel. And most people have got access, even on Zwift, to some of their notes that will tell you you need around about 20, 30 grams of glycogen. That's going to give you half an hour of fuel. At top level, we're looking at 60 to 90 grams per hour, but only when we've gone beyond the 90 minutes. I like to tell a rider, if you know that your ride's going to go over 90 minutes, you fuel from 1 hour into that ride using the fuel initially. And that's super important. What can you take? You can't just jump into taking fuel randomly. You got to train your body. Far too many riders think that anything off a shelf's going to work for them. You got to experiment. There are different pHs with nutrition, and there are different reactions that your body will have to it. But it's super important. And for some people, they think that's a load of bollocks because they're trying to exercise to lose weight. So why would I eat something that's full of sugar when I'm exercising? Well, guess what? No matter how hard you try, fat burning is a term that's kind of loosely thrown about that's not really appropriate for riding on Zwift at medium to high intensity. Now, when does your recovery start? This recovery point, therefore, is based on the glycogen clock and your duration. So most people think recovery starts either when I start the cool down or when I finish my workout. Well, this is wrong. Recovery starts the minute you start exercising, because the minute you start exercising, you are suppressing your immune system, you're increasing inflammation. So therefore, you need to start recovering. And we do this through good hydration and good glycogen. So if you pay attention to the way in, way out, and you pay attention to the glycogen clock, you are already recovering for the next session during the session you've got. Far too many riders will leave the fueling too late, or they'll think, I'm going out for 90 minutes. I don't really need to fuel. You do, because glycogen depletion, even at a small level, has an offset to protein resynthesis. And it's the proteins that are essential for the rebuilding, because there are key proteins that amino acids that build up the proteins that you don't naturally produce. We've got to take them in a diet. So again, the parameters would be your age, your diet, whether you're vegan, vegetarian, whether you eat anything that you can get your hands on. There are really key ways that protein is taken in. But that protein is important in terms of its absorption. So you take somebody like me, many of you who maybe know me know that I've got a disease of my bowel and my colon. So absorption rates of foods are different. So the timing is really important. So that leads me on to what I call the 2-22 rule. In the first 2 minutes, when you finish the last effort and you're entering cool down, you've got 2 minutes roughly to start taking on water and start taking on small bites of glycogen. Your body's still in what we call the sympathetic nervous mode. This is fight or flight. You've just done a workout, you've been aggressive, you've got all those pain faces, you've been screaming at the TV or whatever you're watching it on. But we've got to turn that off. That fight or flight has got to be switched off. And for a lot of people, it can take 90 minutes or 2 hours. So again, it's this parameter. And if we take protein in after a hard workout during that time, well, it may just be converted to glycogen rather than converted into what we call this muscle protein and actually regenerating the fibers that we've maybe damaged, regenerating the immune system, the rebuilding of healthy cells. So that's something that you may have to take into account. So at 2 minutes, start the glycogen. By 20 minutes, you want to have at least, for an hour's workout or 90 minutes, you want to have at least 30 grams. Or bananas, what, 25? Depends on the size of the banana, coach. Well, yes, of course it does. But you want to have accomplished that. And normally, if you've done a hard workout, say you've done a Zwift race, the golden rule is oxygen and carbon dioxide. They have a fight. One's in the red corner, one's in the blue corner, and they come out fighting. And it normally takes the average athlete 6 to 7 minutes for oxygen to start winning that fight. So some people often say to me, oh, bollocks to cool downs. I haven't got time. The wife needs me to go and put the bins out. Well, you've got to actually think to yourself, if you leave that carbon dioxide in there, well, it's kind of acidic, isn't it? It's kind of toxic. So a lot of people say to me, hey, my heart rate's so good, coach. I can finish a workout and I'm back to pre-exercise levels in about 5 or 6 minutes. That's not good. Okay, we don't want your heart rate going down. What? I know you don't. You want your heart rate remaining slightly high, around about the 100, 110, 120 mark, because you want to use it as a flusher at a high level to send what? Oxygen. Oxygen kicks the shit out of lactic acid instantly. Okay, it breaks it down. And you've heard of lactate. Yeah, it's a form of energy, so we can reuse it. So you've got to think about that cool down. But in that 20-minute, bosh, you've gone. Now in 2 hours, that's normally that point within parameters that you would start to take on your protein. Now, I know that sounds a lot crazy for some people because you're drinking your very expensive protein shake the minute you've finished. I would ask you to have a change of plan and see how it works for you, because you may get a better absorption once your body flips into the parasympathetic mode, whereby you're in the rest and digest. Hey, I watched a show last night. I really liked the guy, Wim Hof. Now, he's an absolute, I nearly said knob end there, but I'll not say that. But he's acting like an idiot on TV. I think it's just because he's getting a big salary, but he's a very, he's a great guy in terms of cardiovascular development through cold water treatment. Other stuff, a bit debatable, but the idea of relaxation. So what a rider will do after a stage in the Giro, they've got to relax. You'll see them doing a cool down. They're just flushing by maintaining the heart rate around about that 100 to 120. But what they're trying to do is relax. They'll listen to music and they'll try and switch off. They'll meditate, some of them, and they'll try and switch on. They don't let it happen, they make it happen. So for some people, just actually turning off some of the cognitive stimulus that you may have. So maybe you are overstimulated, you've got Zwift and you're concentrating on it. You don't need music, you don't need flashing bloody strobe lights. You need to focus on switching that fight or flight off. And this brings me back to a nice simple term I call the simple health check. How are you measuring recovery? You might have a fancy watch, okay, that's measuring heart rate variability, but most people don't know how to use that. And again, it's based on your measurements. There's no national database of what's good and what's bad. What I would say is use simple metrics for your health. Because remember, if you drive up health, you drive up fitness. It's a byproduct of health. It's not fitness first, then health. Most people, as I say a lot, if you train for 10 hours a week, that's 6% of your week. That's 94% of your week where you can screw it up by making a mess of your recovery. But recovery is linked to health. So use things like resting heart rate. Use things like oxygen saturation from a very cheap oximeter you can buy on Amazon. Argos, I don't even know if Argos exists anymore, but anyway, the one in Air's gone. Things like how you feel, RPE, because as I often say to riders, in most cases, believe it or not, you may think you're untrained, but your physical fitness, your cardiovascular fitness is not the thing that's holding you back. It's your health, it's your joint health, it's your joint strength through posture, it's your mindset. Because if I asked you to do 100 miles, if your life depended on it, I bet you could do it. Now, you may hurt, but you could do it. So there are other aspects. And a lot of our recovery doesn't involve trauma treatment. We don't see it. We're so associated with the identity of a workout being the prime mover for fitness. And actually, it's only one part, and it's the easiest part because it's only a stimulus. And most people can find a little bit of motivation and stimulate themselves to push. It's therefore, once they've caused the trauma, how do you treat it? I often talk about the trauma of a broken leg, being sent to hospital and being sent home with 2 paracetamol tablets. It's the same sort of thing as a rider would do with a hard workout and having a really poor appreciation of recovery. So that way in, way out into that glycogen clock understanding, into that recovery start point. When is it starting? Following a basic rule such as a 2:22, 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours. You could add on the 4 hours with that, and then that sort of simple health check. There's maybe one of those things that you could try for a week. With the health check, I do a number of rides I get people to do that measures their heart rate over a season at the same power. We do heart rate testing at different points in the day so that you can map it yourself. And I mean, you just take your own pulse and you write it on a pad or something, or keep a record of it in your phone. It's so simple to do, but it gives you really meaningful data, and you can therefore analyze and prepare to either take a rest or push harder, etc. So that is recovery indoor in about 2% of what it actually all is. But hopefully you've got something from that. We've got a little bit of time to chew the fat and ask a few questions.
Brilliant. Coach, that's been absolutely fantastic. My pad is full of stuff there. Absolutely got a huge amounts out of that. Thank you so much. We've got a few people on. And Ian, I know we had a couple of Q&As come in. I don't know if you want to just kick us off and we'll see what other ones can come in as well.
Yeah, so anybody who does want to ask a question, please write it in the chat, stick your hand up, and we'll get Coach to fill us with some more knowledge. I do have one here. So riders often take electrolyte tablets in their hydration. Are these essential?
Okay, so with electrolytes, the fantastic advertisers in the media and all such, they'll have us believe that they are essential. Now, they obviously are. Now, the trouble with a lot of tablet form is they don't have a broad spectrum. So, for example, since the introduction of sports science, I was very lucky to be kind of close to the start in the 80s with Boardman training for Barcelona, Dr. Pete Keane. And what happened was you basically put salt and water, a tiny little pinch. Now that's elevated to people using what we call pink salt or Himalayan salt. If you look at the broad spectrum of minerals on it, it's much greater. Now, I'm not saying go and put salt and water, but is a mineral depletion something that you are experiencing because it happens through indoor training? You sweat a lot more. Maybe you do have a salty diet. Remember, sweat is essential to remove a lot of unwanted salts from the body, but there are key electrolytes. I don't want to get talking too much about the sodium potassium pump, but potassium, for example, is essential. Most people think they'll get it from a banana, but a banana is probably right down the bottom of the pile of foods we can get it from. But mineral depletion has a similar effect on the body as dehydration, headache, tiredness, a lack of motivation. If you're suffering from a lack of motivation and you think, I just need a kick up the arse, it's not. It's your body's way of protecting itself because it's trying to stop you causing more trauma. So it takes away key hormones, become lower. So you just lose that little bit of fight. But minerals are essential. If the only way you're getting them through is from electrolyte tablet, take that. But make sure that when you're taking it, one little tip is don't gulp it all down in one go. Try and spread that drink out, say over half an hour or an hour. And this will help you absorb. You drink it all down, you're going to piss most of it out, okay? Because you're taking it in too quick. And this is the trouble with rehydration. We drink water far too fast. We drink food far too fast. So yeah, think about checking out pink salt. Maybe do a bit of research yourself, see if it works for you. If you are a heavy sweater, workout sweat is different from going in the bath, by the way. It's a deeper, muscular, cellular sweat, and it'll taste salty. Probably going on to that too much, but yeah, they're good. Minerals essential, but always try and get them in our diet. Check out, if you want to Google something, check out where you're going to get potassium from, because for athletes, that's the number one. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that's great. What's your take on precision hydration? So they do their sachets. They've got their kind of 3 different levels up to the 1500 milligrams. And again, they focus mainly on the sodium and potassium side of things. Is that worth taking kind of in advance of a cycle or post-cycle?
Yeah, it could be. I would say, Ian, that it's important to train with it. You got to know how your body will react, because remember what we're doing with supplements, all supplements. So like I do DNA testing of athletes as well. So what we do with the DNA test, we can look at absorptions. So did you know that, for example, I won't name him, but he was an ex-GB athlete, and he had a very low absorption of vitamin D. We'll stick him outside, and no matter what supplements he took. And remember, Olympic teams, they have minimum standards of absorption they want you to get to, because they believe that will give you the best opportunity to train and recover, etc. He couldn't get it, so taking supplements all the time, no matter. So, but by taking it mindset wise, you may take it, Ian, but you may get a different reaction to me. You may get more of it. So I would train with it. But the reason I don't push sodium is because I believe people get enough of it in their diet. So I don't really push a lot of sodium to people. I get them to focus on potassium. Calcium is obviously the key one, and I'm sure you may even have some doctors on and they'll know that it's calcium that controls that muscle contraction. But you're using it, why? Because you're worried about cramp or muscular function. Well, there are other things that we can help with cramp. But yeah, if you're going to take it, it's not going to do you any harm, but train with it first before an event. Don't just save it up thinking you're going to get some superpower on the day of the event. Okay.
Sure, that's great. So we've had one from a long-standing member, Andy Fish. So he's saying, I have suffered since childhood, now 47, with cramps. Now a triathlete, very twitchy calf muscles after exercise, then full-on cramp. Sweat quite a lot, tried magnesium and potassium, but never really sorted the problem. Sometimes happens after 20 minutes of swimming in the feet and calves. Does he need to up the doses or go for a full-on sweat test?
You could take a sweat test, yeah, and they'll give you some results. But we've got to remember that there's more known about the surface of the moon than there is about cramp. Okay, there is no actual direct link that will say this is what's causing you cramp. It may be a muscular imbalance. A lot of people suffer cramp in their bed at night. So we could relate it to a circulatory problem, that the blood's not flowing around. So what I would say, Andrew, as well, is have you tried massage therapy? Have you got a little massage gun to increase circulation post-exercise to keep the blood flowing? Have you used compression tights to... So why does Andy Murray jump in a cold bath? And why is cold water not as useful for cycling? Well, he does it because high intensity exercise sends the blood back to the muscle. So it helps to flush out. So if the cramp is happening afterwards, I can't remember if it was during or after, I would increase the cool down. I would increase the flushing. But post-exercise, if it's happening at a particular time, can you go for a walk? Can you do like what I said about massage? Can we increase the circulation? What about what particular muscle is it? Is it an imbalance? Remember, muscles work in pairs, husband and wife or partner and partner, whatever it is. If one becomes overly strong in relation to the partner, for a cyclist, it's normally quadriceps become too strong and they pull the knee out of place, but the hamstring gets cramped. If the foot's getting cramped, can we look at releasing the muscle? Have you done, you only need a hockey ball. I've got one here, and you roll it over, roll your foot on it and release the muscle. Trigger points are building all the time when you exercise, and a lot of athletes will stretch. Well, if you stretch and you've got a trigger point, think of a knot in a shoelace and you stretch it, the knot gets tighter. That's what's happening for a lot of people's muscles. So it's needing out trigger points. It may just be that point. There's lots of things. I would take one at a time, Andrew. You've obviously done a lot and you've suffered from it for a long time. So it could be that it's built up, that there is a little bit of a muscle imbalance. And when you're exercising, there's just one particular muscle that's getting pounded more and it just can't take the load anymore. I don't know if that's kind of a bit of overkill and I've confused Andrew more, but hopefully that helps.
Oh no, he's pretty switched on. I'm sure he'll have picked up a few bits of gold in there. So we've got Chris Creeves. Thanks for your question, Chris. So what's your take on homemade protein shakes? Currently using a recipe from Cycling Chef. Includes lots of nuts, peanut butter, bananas, milk, and whey protein.
Okay, yeah. So whey protein has got obviously a faster absorption for, again, within parameters for a lot of people. Believe it or not, when I worked at the Commonwealth Games in 2014, the team I was working with, I worked out that we could use for some of them nothing more than Nesquik, chocolate, and milk, and a couple of other little things with some egg powder and such. And that was enough for them. I wanted to give them something they could take back home to Africa that they could use. There are loads of recipes out there, and that sounds like a perfect. There's lots in there. I guess you're shaking that up. But again, what I would say is look at, so with regards to the protein, I would say people on a hard day, the following day, what we want to do is get that athlete up to around about 100 to 120 grams during the day over 6 sittings. Your body can accommodate 20 grams in that one sitting. Take any more, you're only going to store it as glycogen. It's not going to be as protein. So my issue with a lot of people is that they take it too quickly, they take too much, and they're not spreading it out. If we can get it when we're massively parasympathetic, then we're going to absorb more of it. But yeah, if it works and you've got measurements that you know that you're getting in, stick with it. Again, if you're making it from home, you're going to save yourself a bit of money. Some of them can get very, very expensive, and we can be very, very confused by some of their marketing tactics. The absorption rate is this, etc. Well, eggs have some of the highest levels of protein, highest levels of absorption, and they're available. I'm not too sure of the price at the moment with inflation going up, but they are out there quite easy. But yeah, I would say well done for making your own. And yeah, as long as you spread it out. And when I say 100 to 120 grams, that's not every day. You've got to work your workouts out. I would often say that if an athlete goes beyond that, what I call that 2-hour cutoff point, if you're putting a lot more demand on your muscle fibers for a lot of workouts that are, say, under an hour, you're getting enough from your natural diet. And remember, protein, so a protein shake, another important point is it's viscosity. So if we put it in 3 viscosities, solid, and then a kind of gooey mixture, and then liquid. Solid is the best for absorption, and then it goes down to liquid. So if you think, well, the first thing I'm going to take is a liquid one. So Team Sky always had the rule post-ride. They had a 2-hour, and they would have the protein laid out on a plate. They would eat it solid, because that gives you, so that first protein, that's why I'm saying use the 2-hour rule. Nobody wants to be eating a chicken drumstick while they're on their cool down, do they? But if you spread it out and have it in that 2 hours, so, look at the viscosity and try and create 5-star viscosity through solid food down to a lower. I'm not saying it's terrible. If it's all we've got, we take it. I use it. I use a particular form that works for me in protein powder. Add it to my milk and off we go. Hopefully that helps.
That's great. Yeah. So I got a wee thank you there from Chris. Maybe you can post that recipe up on our Discord, Chris, and we can all get some of the love on that.
That's great. Yeah. Can I just say that if I rush through things, I know we've only got a short time. The guys are maybe planning we're going to do this. We touch in once a month and topics that you want. If you want to email me with something that I've not gone through, hey, I'm always available, and I love engaging with cyclists. I've got over 30 years experience in cycling from all levels, and I'm still involved with pro aspects of the business still today. So yeah, just drop me an email. The guys can leave that address at the end for you.
Nice. Now I'm just conscious of time, but I do have one.
Yes, I've not had my dinner
here. So how important is stretching as part of the recovery process?
It's not.
Great. Dinner time.
Okay, let me tell you this. Okay, right. I've seen more athletes injured stretching than I've seen them not stretching. I want you to think of the S's: stretch, strength, stability. If I was to roll the dice, the number one would be stability. Stability would come out first. Now, stretching has a function. It has a very, very important function. And remember, when you stretch, what's happening? You're not stretching a muscle. Believe me, folks, you can't stretch a muscle. It's ligaments and tendons. Tendons have a little bit more rigidity than the ligament, but they're attaching. Tendon is your muscle to bone, and ligament is your bone to bone. So they arrange that joint flexibility. In cycling, one of the craziest things I always hear is, oh, don't do a weight training exercise, or don't do a squat exercise because you can't get the angles or the loading correct for cycling. That is a load of bollocks, and that is a myth, because to increase stability, you have to work in the opposite direction to what you're doing during the cycling. Think stability. If you increase the stability of a joint, it will be much healthier and it will be more robust. Okay, so then think of the strength. So you should be doing strength exercises. I would do nothing more than use your own body resistance. And then stretching should be done as part of a program, either after your routine or as part of, say, a yoga or a Pilates or a core workout. But as a mindset, a stretch can help. For some people, they'll just feel that little bit looser. But again, if you've got a trigger point, and it's easy to find trigger points, you know, from a massage gun, or run your finger over your calf, like you feel the fibers. And when you feel that sensitive point, that is where the nerve is going through the fibers, and the fibers have gripped. If you've ever had a muscle spasm, you'll know exactly what I mean. The only way to get that out is to press on it. Acupuncture, a proper sports massage. Stretching it, you're only going to tighten that knot. But flexibility drills, so stability, strength. I could say I'm going to be sharing a lot more exercises, especially around two key muscles, latissimus dorsi and trapezium, for cyclists, but I don't want to plug my own channel. But yeah, you can watch out for that, okay?
Send us a link.
Yeah. So stretch, yes, but it's honestly, it's a little bit of a myth that it's going to be a massive game changer. Super.
Well, listen, that's all we've got at the moment. So, Synth, I'm going to pass back over onto you.
Couldn't be more delighted to hear that stretching is absolute bollocks, because I do absolutely hee-haw. Anyway, so that was terrific news. Absolutely terrific news.
It's not. Don't get me wrong. And people there is a space for it, and yoga is one of the great. But even yoga is about manipulation into positions. Hey, look, the easiest way to watch is a football game, or watch the guys warm up and see the different types of drills, therabands, different movements. That's, you know, stability. And remember, you're cycling with your foot in a cleat. Your ankle's probably the least stable joint of your body, and you're trying to stabilize it, but you're putting a 6-degree float on. You know, it's not easy. You need to do those stabilizings. And remember, if I was to ask you, how do you steer your bicycle? Most people would say, with my hands, coach. You don't. You steer your bike with your ass. There you go. You can work that one out.
Well, we didn't go down Karma Sutra, which is what I thought we were going to start to go down. We started on There we go. Well done. Look, Coach, on behalf of the club, thank you so much for taking the time.
No problem.
That's been absolutely terrific. Thank you to those who got involved and asked their questions. Big thanks to Ian for being our hostess with the mostess. As Coach says, we're going to get a little Discord channel on our Discord server. We'll put a few links on there. We'll get this kind of posted on a few things for those that missed it. And we'd be delighted to get some feedback from people on this session, but also in future sessions, as Coach says. What would you like to hear about, and how can we kind of bring more to that to the club? So thank you so much, all.
Yeah, just to throw into, remember, although I'm a professional coach, I'm also a professional bike fitter as well, so as well as nutrition. So there is that as well. And especially indoors, people do tend to have issues potentially through saddle, cleat position and that. So if there's anything that comes up in that, we do a little session. I'm more than happy to go through setting up your shoes, to holding the bars and changing things like that. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great. Fantastic session. I'll have a great night, and enjoy your dinner, folks. All the best.
Yes, I'm going to have my protein now.
Well, no more than 20 grams to remember. Well done. Cheers. Take care.
See you, folks.